Hi everyone. This is the module on health psychology for the third year students of psychology, Bachelor of Arts program. This is a semester 5 course. The unit that we're looking at is chronic illnesses, and within this, we're looking at the module on alcoholism and problem drinking. My name is Arish Naik. So, in today's lecture, we're going to look at alcoholism and problem drinking, and these are not the same conditions, right? There's a subtle difference between both of these conditions. And also we'll look at the treatment and preventive approaches for these conditions. At the end of this class, you should be able to describe the various treatment approaches and preventive approaches that you can adopt for alcohol use and problem drinking. So let's begin. So we all know how prevalent the use of alcohol is across the world. Right? We hear of cases where people suffer from alcohol-based disorders almost every other day. And across the world, you have compelling evidence to show that alcohol has been linked to a host of other health conditions as well, such as high blood pressure, stroke, liver cirrhosis, cancer, and so on. Right? All the ones that are given on your screen. Use of alcohol also results in accidents. It could be at the work site, or it could be when you're operating heavy machinery, or it could even be if you are driving a car, for example. We find that alcohol also places a heavy toll on society. A lot of money is spent in, uh, in providing for medical care and services for those who have alcohol use disorders. You have individuals who lose their earnings because they can't hold their regular jobs, and they splurge on alcohol. And when you have instances of drunk driving, for example, there's often damage caused to civic property, right? So it may be, say, an electricity pole, or a transformer, or compound wall of a park, right? So you can have someone going in and ramming their car into such kind of civic property, and that has to then be repaired. Alcohol also makes it easy for people to resort to risky behaviors. And therefore, you have a lot of fights and assaults happening, you have a lot of murders and even suicides. Right? It tends to make people impulsive, and therefore, you have individuals engaging in risky behaviors as well. Now, how is it that you distinguish someone who's an alcoholic and someone who is considered to be a problem drinker? Because remember, I said that they're not the same condition. So, when someone is an alcoholic, you are essentially saying that they are physically dependent on it, which means that even if they want to leave alcohol, even if they want to stop drinking, they cannot stop drinking. Right? They have reached a level where their body now has to be given that much amount of alcohol just to function, right? Because of the levels of tolerance that is built up, your body releases a huge number of hormones into a system on a regular basis to combat the level of alcohol that you're consuming. So if you stop drinking, then that kind of the hormones that your body has released already creates havoc within you. So you need to now continue drinking to balance out those levels, right? So that's when you are said to be physically dependent. And if you stop drinking, you often have withdrawal symptoms. Like you can have tremors, you might also hallucinate in some cases. When it comes to problem drinkers, it's slightly different. Here, they may or may not have the above symptoms, but they also have social, psychological, and medical problems from alcohol. Right? So, because of alcohol, they're not able to function to the level that they expected to function in social aspects or even psychological aspects. So, cognitive abilities may be hampered. They may have medical problems like liver damage, and yet they continue to drink. Right? That's what is a problem drinker. Even after having said that, they both share certain common behaviors. So both of them use alcohol on a daily basis. They are not able to cut down on their alcohol intake. they may indulge in binge drinking, and they may have memory loss while they are intoxicated, which means they can't remember what happened when they had alcohol. Let's look at the treatment for alcohol abuse. You find that there is a certain percentage of people who stop drinking on their own, which means that they don't need any sort of treatment, right? But that's just 20%. So 20 people out of every 100 people will eventually stop drinking on their own, even if they're abusing alcohol at the moment. For 32%, you may have to provide some sort of minimal help. It could be maybe some kind of social support, or some kind of adjustments at work, or some sort of problem, some sort of help with relationship problems. So with such kind of minimal help, or even financial issues, for example. So a lot of people resort to alcohol because they may lose their jobs. So providing a job for them makes it easy for them to give up alcohol. So that's where the 32% fit in. And the rest will definitely need treatment for alcohol, and they could be treated through the cognitive behavioral modification programs. So you have CBT based programs which could be employed to treat people who have alcohol use disorders. But the problem again here is that 60% of those treated may relapse. So alcohol does that, right? Even with drugs, in certain cases, it happens that it has a high relapse rate. So it's not the same as it may be for someone else who needs medical help, right? So for an alcoholic, they may want medical help, they may understand the severity of the condition, they go in for treatment and rehab, they come out of it after successful completion, and yet they may have a relapse, right? What has been found is that individuals coming from high socioeconomic status families, right? So SES refers to socioeconomic status. So individuals from such families do better in treatment because they have highly stable environments. So if you have someone coming from a financially not so well off background, then probably going in for treatment would mean that it's a financial drain on the family to provide for the treatment. The individual themselves may lose their job. So when they come back, they may not have a job, and coping with its stress may make it more difficult for them not to relapse. So you may find that they relapse. In treatment programs, you often have medications that can be included as well, right? And especially this is the case that is done usually for alcoholics who are physically dependent. So when they are on medications, right, and when they need to stop drinking alcohol right from the get-go, when they take those medications, it makes it easier for them to not have alcohol. It reduces the severity of the withdrawal symptoms, right? So that's where medications become important. Stress management also becomes a necessary skill for them to learn, because once they complete treatment, when they go out back into the real world, they may find that they may have a likelihood to reach for the bottle in times of stress, because it had already become a coping habit for them. So it's important to equip individuals with stress management techniques so that they do not reach for the bottle when they face stress. Other skills such as relaxation and assertiveness can also help someone not use alcohol, right? Usually when it comes to peer pressure, for example, someone who has completed treatment and given up alcohol may be surrounded by people who are drinking alcohol, and there may be some kind of subtle social obligation as well. So in a lot of our cultural festivities, right, you have alcohol which is part of the festivity. So individuals there may encourage each other to have a drink. So here assertiveness and the ability to say no to a drink can come in very handy for an individual like this. The family of the individual also needs to be equipped with appropriate skills to help each other, because this can't be the journey of one person, right? This person needs the help of their family, and therefore group counseling and family therapy can come in very, very handy. And like I mentioned, relapse prevention is the key here. The idea here is to never assume that someone who is free from alcohol today will always be free. The idea is to always be prepared for relapse to happen. Right? As long as you're prepared for that, you should be fine. So, along with treatment options for alcohol abuse, you can also have some preventive approaches to alcohol abuse. This can begin right early on in age, right? So, teaching adolescents how to refuse drinks, especially in moments of peer pressure, how to cope with high risk situations, such as examination stress, for example, or relationship problems. All of these can equip them with the skills to not indulge in alcohol use further on in their lives. And this happens because once you empower individuals with these kinds of skills, they become much more confident of managing their drinking behaviors. So self efficacy is high, therefore, they can then indulge in less risky behaviors or not partake in alcohol use at all. Other options wherein you make it, or rather, where you can prevent alcohol use among the population is by focusing on other aspects of the trade. So if regulations come in which make alcohol that much more expensive to purchase, then individuals will not purchase them in such high quantities, and therefore you're going to have less number of people who succumb to alcohol use. Advertising, fortunately, is already restricted here in our country, so you don't find adverts of alcohol on TV or on billboards or on social media. So that's a step in the right direction there. And focusing on alcohol as a major youth problem and addressing it to the level of intensity needed goes a long way in managing or preventing alcohol abuse. So, in summary, alcohol abuse and problem drinking take a heavy toll on society in different ways, not just in health, but also in other costs. And preventive drinking behaviors pays off in the long term because it reduces the number of alcohol abuse cases in the future. These are references. Thank you.